Welcome to Galactic Nova Stories, where cosmic emotions come to life. Your journey begins now. She waited in the dark. The station had fallen into silence, the kind that crept beneath your skin and made every heartbeat feel intrusive. Only the cold, mechanical breathing of the aging life support vents punctuated the stillness, their soft hisses growing weaker with each passing hour. Aurelia sat curled on the edge of the observation bay, her legs folded beneath her, the thin fabric of her gown pooling around her in shivering waves. Her skin, once vibrant with flowing bands of silver and violet, now pulsed faintly, dimming with exhaustion. Each faint glimmer was a whisper of the life still burning within her. The stars beyond the viewport seemed to blur and stretch like tears she refused to shed. She clutched a small device between trembling fingers, an ancient relic, half human, half alien, a crude communicator he had left behind. She pressed it to her chest. It was cold, painfully so, but it anchored her here, in this broken place between hope and surrender. The memory of his voice haunted her. The way he had first spoken her name, barely more than a whisper, as if afraid that uttering it aloud would shatter the fragile moment between them. Aurelia, spoken not as a command or a label, but as a prayer. In a world where she had been called nothing but a weapon, a mistake, or a myth, he had said her name with awe, as if seeing her, not just the shimmer of her alien skin, but the soul buried deep within. The station trembled, a low, almost imperceptible quake that set dust drifting lazily from the ceiling supports. Somewhere, deep within the bowels of the abandoned structure, a pipe groaned and split, releasing a sigh of escaping steam. Aurelia tensed instinctively, her senses sharpening. Danger lurked everywhere now, the failing systems, the thinning air, the roving scavengers who would tear apart the station, and her, for scraps. Yet she remained, waiting in the dark, for the one heart in the universe who had looked at her and not turned away. She remembered the first touch, how strange and delicate it had been. His gloved fingers, smeared with blood and grime, brushing against her forearm where the light of her skin flickered nervously. He had flinched, not in fear, but in reverence, as if he thought she might dissolve beneath his touch. She had almost pulled away, almost hidden herself again in the labyrinthine decks of the station. But then he had done something no one else ever had. He removed the glove, slowly, carefully, and pressed his bare, trembling hand to her own. Warmth. Real, human warmth. It had seeped into her bones, thawing the frozen edges of her existence. She remembered his eyes too, green, vibrant, burning with a stubborn hope that made her chest ache, a hope she had not dared to feel in countless cycles. The communicator at her chest gave a weak sputter, flashing once, a dying heartbeat. She lifted it, staring down at the cracked screen, willing it to flicker to life. No message, no signal, just silence, as infinite as the stars. Still, she could almost hear him, almost feel the rumble of his boots against the metal grates, each step drawing him closer, defying all odds. Every great bond starts with a single moment of courage. Galactic Nova Stories is just beginning, and your support matters. If you love emotional sci-fi tales, forbidden connections, and stories that stay with you, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring more stories from the stars to you. Aurelia leaned back against the viewport, the chill of the glass biting into her spine. Above her, the great sweep of the Horsehead Nebula bled across the void. A splash of purples and blues more beautiful than any ancient painting. It made her think of him again, of the way he had laughed just once when she tried to describe what emotions felt like through color. Laughter, such a rare sound here. A sound worth fighting for. Her thoughts grew heavier, weighed down by memories and what-ifs. What if he had never made it off the planet? What if he had been captured by the consortium forces patrolling these border systems? What if she was clinging to a ghost? No. She shook her head fiercely, strands of silver hair catching the dim starlight. He was out there. He had promised. We'll come back for you. Not spoken as an oath, not demanded, simply offered what, and she had believed him. The station shifted again, the subtle tilt of artificial gravity faltering. Her stomach lurched. Time was running thin. She pressed her forehead to the glass, whispering into the darkness between worlds, "Don't forget me." And then she waited, still and silent, a lone candle against the consuming night. Her heart counting out the rhythm of hope, fragile, stubborn, endless. Because she knew, somewhere out there, he was counting too. The darkness thickened as the station's last reserves of energy bled away, leaving only the stars to cast their cold watch over Aurelia. Time became shapeless, a strange current that dragged her between memories and waking dreams. In the half-light, she thought she heard it, the faintest vibration in the deck below her. Her breath hitched, her body freezing instinctively. She strained her senses, heart hammering against her ribs. The vibration grew, a soft, rhythmic thud. Footsteps. Could it be him? She surged to her feet too fast, dizziness lancing through her vision. Gripping the edge of the cracked viewport to steady herself, she listened harder. Was it real or a trick of her desperate mind? She had imagined his return so many times, painting vivid dreams across the canvas of the dark. Dreams so real they left her weeping when she woke. Another step. Then another, closer, heavier than she remembered, weighted by armor perhaps or exhaustion. Aurelia's heart danced between fear and desperate hope. It could be him, or it could be scavengers, mercenaries who had no use for a lone, fading creature like her except as salvage. She moved quickly and silently through the observation bay, her bare feet making no sound against the icy metal. Her hand hovered over the panel near the door, half wrecked from neglect, but still capable of limited surveillance. A flickering hollow image bloomed to life, blurred and glitching. At first, she saw only a figure, tall, broad-shouldered, human, in outline, but wrapped in ragged armor and carrying a heavy pack. His face was obscured beneath a battered helmet. Her heart twisted painfully. Could it really be him? After so long, after so many days, maybe months, alone with only her memories, and fading hope to keep her breathing, she hesitated. If she opened the door, she could be welcoming death. If she did not, she might miss the one moment she had waited her whole life for. Her hand trembled over the door control. Her mind raced back to the last night they were together, before he left. She remembered how he lingered by the docking bay, the way his hands shook slightly when he fastened the last strap of his gear. She remembered his voice, raw and unguarded. "Stay alive. Just stay alive a little longer. I'll find a way back to you." The way he said it, not like a soldier making a tactical promise, but like a man afraid of losing the only bright thing he had found in a shattered universe, left no room for lies. She closed her eyes now, breathing in the frigid air, feeling it scrape against her lungs. Fear was a bitter taste on her tongue, but beneath it something stronger stirred. Trust. With a soft exhale, she touched the control panel. The door shuddered and slid open a fraction, groaning in protest. A sliver of the corridor beyond was revealed, bathed in a sickly yellow emergency. Light. The figure turned sharply toward the opening. Aurelia's breath caught. The helmet was slowly, carefully lifted away, revealing tangled dark hair, a scar across one brow, and green eyes rimmed in exhaustion, but burning with recognition. Him. For a moment, neither of them moved. The silence between them vibrated with everything they could not yet say. The pain, the longing, the impossible odds they had defied just to be standing here again. She stepped into the threshold, barely daring to breathe. He stared at her, at her flickering skin, her delicate frame, and she saw it. The tightness around his mouth, the way his eyes shone with unshed tears, he was too proud to let fall. He dropped his pack with a heavy thud. His voice cracked the brittle air, hoarse but sure. Aurelia. The way he spoke her name, it shattered something inside her and rebuilt it all at once. Like sunrise breaking over a barren world. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. Instead, she reached out, fingers trembling, and he met her halfway. Their hands touched, bare skin to skin, and for a breathless second she swore she felt the universe narrow to a single, blinding thread that connected them across every hurt, every fear, every moment lost. He squeezed her hand gently, a wordless apology and a promise all at once. "I'm here," he whispered, as if speaking too loud might undo the fragile miracle of this moment. "I came back for you." And somehow, against every starless night she'd endured, she smiled, a real trembling, luminous smile. For the first time in so long, the darkness around her seemed just a little less vast. But even as she held him, even as she felt the thrum of his life against her own, she sensed it. Something was wrong. A shadow lurking behind his eyes, a wound not yet revealed. The reunion was real. The danger was closer than ever, and their story was only just beginning. The cold of the station seemed to fade as they stood there, hands entwined in the half-lit corridor. For a few heartbeats, time itself bowed to their reunion. But as the stillness stretched, Aurelia felt it, the faint tremble in his fingers, the quickening of his breath against the silence. Something was wrong. Deeply, desperately wrong. She leaned in, searching his face, her bioluminescence flaring slightly with worry. Beneath the dirt and exhaustion, his skin was too pale, the lines around his eyes etched too deeply for the mere hardship of travel. His armor, battered and patched, bore a fresh gash along the side where a dark stain spread, rust-brown and crusted. "You're hurt," she whispered, the words tasting of fear. He shook his head, a half-hearted denial that only made her heart clench tighter. "It's nothing," he said. "I just needed to get to you, that's all that matters." But she knew. Before he could protest further, she drew him inside, sealing the door with a press of her hand against the panel. The locks groaned as they slid back into place, trapping them together in their little cocoon of failing light and ancient stars. Guiding him gently, she led him to the central dais of the observation bay, a raised circle where long ago, people had mapped the heavens and dreamed of home. Now it served as their sanctuary. She knelt before him without hesitation, her hands moving to unclasp the battered chestplate of his armor. He let her, his strength wavering, his breathing shallow. As the plate fell away with a heavy clang, she saw the wound, a deep gash across his ribs, hastily stitched with crude medtech patches. The skin around it was inflamed, angry, and she could smell the sharp metallic tang of infection. Aurelia's hands hovered for a moment, trembling. Memories flooded her. The way he had tended her injured leg after the breach, the way he had stayed awake through the night just to watch over her while she slept, vulnerable and exposed. Now it was her turn. Now she would protect him. She retrieved a small vial from the hidden panel beneath the dais, a relic of her people's ancient biotechnology. The liquid inside shimmered like liquid starlight, potent, volatile, precious. It was all she had. She uncorked it with a soft hiss and gently began to cleanse the wound, her touch feather-light. He flinched at first, a soft grunt escaping him, but he didn't pull away. Instead, he watched her, his gaze burning with something heavier than gratitude, something deeper. "I'm sorry," he rasped, the words so soft she barely caught them. She looked up at him, confusion knitting her brow. He closed his eyes for a long moment, as if bracing himself against invisible tides. "They know," he said. "The consortium. About us. I tried to lead them away, but they're coming. Aurelia, they're coming here." The world tilted under her feet. The consortium, those who had hunted her kind to the edges of the galaxy, branding them as threats, anomalies, liabilities. If they knew she was here, it wasn't just her life in danger. It was his, too. Her fingers stilled over his wound. "How long?" she asked, her voice thin. His throat bobbed as he swallowed hard. "Hours, maybe less." The station creaked around them, a groan of strained metal and lost time. Somewhere deep within, a system sparked and died with a sputtering whine. Aurelia sat back on her heels, the vial clutched tightly in her hand. Her mind raced, assessing the station's long-dead defenses, the derelict escape pods half dismantled by scavengers, the broken communication arrays that could not even send a distress signal across the void. They were trapped, and yet she looked at him, at the way he sat slumped against the dais, every breath a battle, and still he had come back. Still he had crossed the dead zones of space, faced down mercenaries and the bitter chill of endless nights, to keep his promise to her. He had risked everything, for her. She reached up, brushing a lock of hair from his forehead. His skin was burning with fever, and the touch made his eyes flutter open. "We'll find a way," she said, the words fierce even in the softest of whispers. "Together." For a moment the ghost of a smile curved his lips, weak but real. Aurelia pressed the rest of the healing serum against his wound, watching as the starlight liquid sank into his skin, knitting tissue with a faint shimmer. It wouldn't be enough, not fully, but it would buy them time to prepare, time to fight, time to choose what mattered most when the end came for them. Above them, the stars wheeled on, indifferent to the struggles of a wounded man and an exiled alien. But in that fragile corner of the dying station, a bond stronger than fear began to forge itself anew, bright and defiant as a nova's heart, and neither of them was ready to let go. Not yet. The station's walls groaned under the pressure of its failing systems. Lights flickered once, twice, then died altogether, plunging them into a darkness only broken by the pale blue gleam of the distant nebula. The silence in the room felt heavier now, as if the universe itself was holding its breath, waiting for the storm to break. Aurelia sat at his side, the steady beat of her heart sinking with his, though every thrum of her pulse felt like a countdown. Her mind raced, piecing together the fragments of her people's ancient technology, all the while aware that time was a luxury they no longer had. She turned to him, her voice steady, but the tremor in her chest betrayed her. "We need to get to the control room," she said, her words like gravel in her throat. "It's our only chance. If I can access the old data cores, we might still be able to send a distress signal, or at least buy us enough time to escape." He shook his head slowly, his eyes dilated with fever, glowing in the half-darkness. "You're not well enough. You're still too weak." Her hand curled into a fist, the starlight from her skin pulsing with raw energy. She had never felt weaker, nor more desperate. Every fiber of her being screamed to hold him close and keep him safe. But the truth settled like a cold stone in her gut. She couldn't save him from this, not without a fight. He reached for her hand, his grip soft but insistent. "Aurelia, if they're coming, it's not just you they'll want. They know about the technology in your blood, the bio-keys to untold galaxies. If they find out what you are, what we are, they'll do more than just capture you." His voice dropped, barely a whisper. "They'll tear you apart to get to it." She swallowed, the words hitting her like a blow. She had spent a lifetime running from the truth of her origins, the knowledge of her people's forbidden power, and now it was hunting her down. Not just the consortium, but everything that lurked in the dark corners of the galaxy. A sudden sharp clang echoed from the hallway outside the observation bay, breaking the stillness. Her heart skipped in her chest. "They're here," he murmured, rising to his feet with a groan of pain, his body fighting every movement. "We don't have much time." Aurelia turned quickly, her senses sharpening in the dark. Her hands went to the nearest console, working by touch and intuition, her mind already planning their next move. She pressed buttons in rapid succession, each press a silent prayer, her body alight with the strange energy she had inherited. But the screen flickered, no response. It was dead. Aurelia cursed under her breath. "The power's too low, the systems are fried. We'll never get anything out of here." "We'll make our own power then," he said, his voice strained. "There's an emergency generator down the hall. If we can get to it and fire it up, we might have enough juice to send a signal." Aurelia glanced at him, a flash of panic in her eyes. "You're in no shape to—" He cut her off with a sharp look. "Neither of us are, but we'll do it anyway. I didn't come this far just to—" He coughed violently, wincing as the pain from his wound flared. His hand gripped his side, his knuckles white, but he didn't back down. "We don't have a choice, Aurelia." She bit her lip, feeling the weight of the moment settle between them, the connection that had brought them together, their shared pain, their shared resolve, was all they had. The cold, distant stars that watched them through the viewport were the only witnesses to this quiet battle of wills. For a long, tense moment, neither of them moved. Then, without a word, she nodded. "Okay," she said. "We'll do it your way." The air was thick with the smell of burning metal as they made their way down the hall, his hand gripping her shoulder for balance, his breathing shallow, strained. The emergency lights flickered weakly above them, casting long, erratic shadows. Against the walls. Every footstep echoed like a countdown. As they rounded the corner, a low hum filled the air, and Aurelia's heart skipped. The generator room loomed ahead, its heavy doors sealed tight. It would be their only chance. But as they approached, the sound of boots, heavy, deliberate, rang out behind them. Someone was close. Someone was very close. Aurelia turned to him, panic flashing across her face. "Hurry!" she whispered urgently. His grip tightened around her arm as he stepped forward, reaching for the door controls. His hand shook, the pain from his wound slowing his movements, but his resolve remained unbroken. He pressed his palm against the panel, and with a soft hiss the doors began to part. Then suddenly a voice sliced through the air. Well, look what we have here." Aurelia froze. Her pulse thundered in her ears. The cold metallic voice was unmistakable. A figure stepped into the dim light, a soldier of the consortium, his armor glinting, his helmet a dark, menacing shape. Behind him, 2 more soldiers emerged from the shadows. Her mind raced. They were trapped. The man in the lead grinned beneath his helmet. "We've been looking for you two," he said, his voice smooth with malice. "The consortium has a use." "For someone like you? All that power inside? You don't know what you've got, do you?" Aurelia's heart lurched. She stepped in front of him, her body acting on instinct, ready to protect him, ready to fight. She hadn't come this far to lose him now. But he placed a hand gently on her arm, his touch firm and steady. His eyes locked onto hers. "Aurelia, listen to me," he whispered. "You're not alone in this anymore." And in that moment, with the weight of the galaxy pressing down on them, she realized he was right. They weren't alone. Not anymore. He wasn't going to let her fight this battle alone, and they were both going to survive no matter what it took. The clang of booted feet echoed like a death knell in the silence of the station. Aurelia could feel the tension in the air, thick as smoke, suffocating the space between them. The consortium soldiers advanced, their weapons gleaming coldly in the dim emergency light, their presence a sharp contrast to the fragile sanctuary she had clung to for so long. The leader's voice cut through the tension, low and mocking. "You think you can run? You think you can hide from us?" He took a step forward, his gloved fingers tracing the edge of his blaster. "You don't know what you've got here, do you? All that power inside you, inside both of you." His eyes flickered to the man beside her, the one she'd waited for, fought for, loved in the silent dark of the galaxy. Aurelia's mind spun. Her body hummed with the strange, volatile energy that had long been a part of her, an energy that could obliterate them all in a single moment. But he had always told her to hold it in check, to hide it, to survive by not showing it. And now, here it was, a tempest inside her, urging her to unleash its full fury. But she couldn't. He was beside her, weaker than he'd ever been, and this battle wasn't just about survival. It was about choice. She turned to him, her eyes desperate, her hand shaking as it rested on his arm. "Please tell me you have a plan." His eyes, those green eyes she had so desperately missed, met hers, filled with a sadness she hadn't seen before. He took a shallow breath, the effort painful, and squeezed her hand once. "I've always had a plan," he said, his voice barely more than a whisper. The soldiers took another step closer, and the leader's grin widened, a predator sensing victory. "You've wasted enough time. You think we'll leave you alive after this? The power inside you belongs to the consortium now. We'll use it, harness it. You'll never escape us." Aurelia felt her heart stop, her chest tightening with the weight of his words. They had never been just a threat. They had always been the real thing. And now, with their backs against the walls of a dying station, with no other escape, Aurelia realized there was only one way out. Her breath quickened, and she could feel the spark of her energy rise inside her. The room pulsed with it, like the hum of a distant star on the verge of going supernova. It was an old power, ancient, dangerous, and bound in a language not spoken in 1,000 years. The consortium was right. They didn't understand it. They didn't know what they were dealing with. "Stay close," she whispered to him, her voice steely, no trace of doubt in it anymore. He nodded, and though his body was weak, his eyes shone with the same fierce resolve. The battle was coming, and they would not lose. Before the soldiers could move again, Aurelia's hands flared with a blinding, radiant light. The air thickened around them, swirling, and the soldiers froze. Her bioluminescence lit the room like a storm, casting long, distorted shadows on the walls. The leader took an instinctual step back, eyes wide with disbelief. "You think you can control that power?" he scoffed, his voice trembling now. "You're just a girl, a freak." But Aurelia's mind was already far beyond his words. She could feel it, the pulse of the universe in her veins, the ancient energy that had been passed down through her people. She wasn't just a girl anymore. She wasn't just a survivor. She was a force of nature. With a guttural cry, she let the power pour from her, sweeping through the room in a brilliant, lethal wave. The air around them crackled with electric fury. The soldiers barely had time to raise their weapons before they were thrown back against the walls, their cries lost in the deafening roar of energy. The leader staggered, disoriented before he could regain his stance. His helmet was scorched, the energy crackling against its surface. But Aurelia wasn't done. In one fluid motion, she stepped forward, her hand reaching out to the generator. Control panel just beyond the soldiers. Her fingers touched the cold metal surface and the room hummed. The emergency generator whined back to life, its power surging through the station like blood returning to a frozen heart. She could feel the surge, feel the weight of it, a weapon, a shield, a lifeline. She didn't have time to savor the moment. Her energy, her control was fragile. The station was already buckling under the strain of it. The leader, furious, disoriented, rose, his blaster aimed directly at her chest. He would shoot, and he would kill if she didn't act. Aurelia's hand shot out instinctively, her fingers curling into a fist. The blaster jerked from the soldier's hand, ripped away by the force of her power. It clattered across the floor, sparks flying from the energy core. The room held its breath, suspended in that brief, heart-stopping moment of stillness. "Get out of here," she ordered, her voice low but sharp as steel. Now. The leader's eyes burned with hatred, but he knew defeat when he saw it. His gaze flickered between Aurelia and the man beside her, his expression one of reluctant recognition. He had underestimated them both. With a snarl, the soldier turned and retreated, his two companions stumbling after him. They didn't even look back. They ran. For a long time, neither Aurelia nor the man spoke. The air was thick with exhaustion, with the aftershocks of the battle and the pounding of their hearts still ringing in their ears. They stood alone now in the heart of the station, the walls still creaking, but for the first time in so long, the silence was different. She turned slowly to him, and he reached out, his hand brushing the side of her face. His touch was gentle, almost reverent. The fever had burned hot through his body, and he was still recovering, but there was a light in his eyes that hadn't been there before. A recognition. A bond. "Aurelia," he said quietly, the weight of her name spoken as if it were the only thing that mattered now. She smiled faintly, her heart heavy with everything that had happened, and everything that could still happen. But there was one thing she knew for sure. Together they had survived. Together they could rebuild. Together they were unstoppable, and for the first time in years Aurelia allowed herself to believe in that. The future, whatever it may hold, was theirs. If you were moved by this story, share it with someone who appreciates deep emotional tales from the stars. Don't forget to like and let us know in the comments, what would you have done in their place?